Welcome back, everybody. You got Will and I-Man here from the Block Runner, and today we're going to be talking about Stonk Brokers.
Yeah, not stock brokers. Stonk.
Yeah,
brokers.
clock in, dude.
Damn, dude,
I'm all in.
you're already like community like,
Community aligned. Yeah, I got the
clock in. That's
lingo.
a good one. That's a good one, actually.
Yeah.
So what does that mean when you clock into things?
Then you do work, right?
Well, it's like you have like a time card, right? You show up at work and
That's
you're
right.
literally clocking in. I guess that's what actual stockbrokers do. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, on Wall Street, everybody clocks in when that Wall Street bell rings, right? In the morning, that ding, 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 ding,
Yeah.
ding, 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 ding. So yeah,
Do they still do that bell?
of course. Yeah, you remember the pudgy penguins like recently, like being?
Oh,
up there?
yeah.
Yeah, that's part of the whole culture over there. Man, what a lame culture. I don't know.
Yeah. It's just a
I mean-
tradition now, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I don't know, maybe it's just more sophisticated for us. But nonetheless, that culture, not just the culture, but the actual primitive of value of Wall Street and, institutional equities and such, it's spilling over into our world,
It is.
if you haven't noticed yet, right? It's kind of like becoming the predominant narrative so far for this bear market. You know, Solana, probably Base, and now especially Robinhood. That's kind of like their main motivation these days is like how much of the transition from, the traditional stock market rails can we bring onto our own chains,
Yeah.
and therefore like, paint this picture of like our chain is awesome because we have, I don't know, X amount of $1 billion worth of equities now in our, our token holders' wallets, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. That's something that's different now that didn't exist in cycles past, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so let's take a look at this tweet by Vlad. He's the
Vlad.
CEO of Robinhood. He says, "Why not both?" It says, "Inside you, there are two wolves: memes and RWAs."
Yeah, so this is an extension of what we talked about last week, right? It's like if you're a founder of a chain, you have an innate responsibility that may not be clear and obvious. It's like, you've got some cultural responsibilities, meaning like you got to be tapped in with your trenches,
Right.
and you need to be, rallying the troops.
Yeah.
And Brian Armstrong has done everything, I guess,
to do the opposite.
Yeah, and he really hurt. Those of you basers out there, I mean, we've made a lot of base videos in the past.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're experiencing real trauma right now, especially if you bought that Brian coin.
Yeah.
But this is what he's doing. He's like, okay, we hear you guys out there in the trenches. You like memes, right? But we also want you guys to know, like, our intent is RWAs, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, in this case, we're going to embrace both as much as possible. So you builders out there should probably make that attempt as well. Right?
Yeah.
So that leads to what we're going to talk about today, Stonk Brokers. It seems to be like one of the closer aligned project narratives to this
Yeah,
tweet.
two wolf pack here.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's take a look on the next tweet. It says from Chill, "We're seeing the birth of a huge narrative, RWA finance."
It's back, dude. That FIs.
Yeah, the FIs are back. "I believe Vlad's tweet below and his willingness to engage with the community send a clear signal to everyone RWA finance is coming. He encouraged builders to build products that interact with tokenized stocks, whether by rewards, DeFi integration, or by other means. This enables retail investors to bring their portfolios into crypto while staying attached to a safe asset they know on the TradFi side."
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah.
It's like a different angle, I guess, that didn't exist before, right? It's like not having to fully embrace crypto, meaning like all these things here in crypto only result in me like accruing a crypto portfolio, right? It's like on the euphoric side is great, but on the downside is like painful.
Yeah, right.
So why not give me a crypto experience that gives me exposure to something more stable, like stocks, right?
Yeah. And Vlad, he recently followed the index team, and so that's sending a clear signal, and that token went ham as soon as that happened.
It did. It shot up to 60 million in an instant, but it has corrected since. But yeah, that does send a signal that, the Robinhood Foundation team, whatever, organization, this is the type of stuff they're looking for, right?
Okay, let's continue on here. We got another tweet here by Hunter. It says, "Stonk Brokers are live. Acquire the native token Stonk Broker. Use to acquire the next Stonk Broker NFT. Put your Stonk Broker on a payroll and receive stock token dividends proportional to their activation tier.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a little more nuance, so I recommend checking the main website. Love to see all the gamification this teams are coming up with for stock tokens on Robinhood Chain.
Yeah. So this one's a little different. It said NFT. We haven't heard NFT in a while.
Yeah.
Like, involved in a project gaining traction. Probably not since like ordinal days, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big deal in itself. But again, it's playing into this realm that I think the market is identifying as like a crucial component to, if you're trying to master craft a narrative for Robinhood, it's got to have these kind of components, right? Again, like some sort of railroad asset tie-in, whether it's a new distribution angle, I guess, for stock tokens, right?
Yeah. So we got a article here called Stonk Brokers and the Stonk Exchange on Robinhood Chain. So we're going to put this link in the description for you guys to read, but it basically breaks down the Stonk Broker, the NFTs themselves, and how it interacts with the actual stocks that they're going to be distributing through the NFT.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of history and lore in here too, of like this team has been part of like the testnet rollout for Robinhood, and they did the hackathon stuff. So they know the right people in the ecosystem, right? If you tend to do those kind of things, you tend to rub shoulders with the right players, and then you tend to get, amplified down the line whenever you actually, go to market.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that factors into why all of a sudden people are paying attention. And it's unfortunate that we can't make videos over the weekend because, we basically missed a lot of the early, I guess, upside trajectory. I mean, these are basically free mints.
Yeah.
So if you were positioned in knowledge of that, you could have partaken in that free mint whitelist phase, just like Ordinals days. Like we're familiar with this. Natcats was a free mint, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So if you happen to be paying attention at the time, you got exposure to something that went from basically nothing to $10,000 a piece.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. So the question is now, it's like, okay, how high have they gotten? Well, I think they topped to like around $2,500 each so far.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay, how much higher can it go? That's what we're trying to figure out.
Yeah, the best part about Stonk Broker is that no one even hates the sellers. Every transaction triggers a tax, which triggers a stock payout for active brokers. The system is working, clock in. So essentially, anytime anybody sells the token, a portion of that fee goes to buy additional stocks, and I think it's 50%.
Yeah, so that's the flywheel, right? And again, the novelty as well. It's like, okay, that's cool. It's like, and I had my own firsthand experience on not necessarily with this, but interacting with some other Robinhood app that allowed me to get access to stock tokens for the first time. And, it wasn't anything mind-blowing experience-wise.
Yeah.
But it was cool opening my wallet and seeing that I had NVIDIA sitting in there. And I didn't acquire it through traditional means. I didn't actually go buy NVIDIA shares from, Robinhood.
Yeah.
I was doing some crypto thing and it just showed up in my wallet. Like that is cool. That is unique. Yeah. It's new.
All right, so they're using ERC 6551 is the most underused tech in crypto. Stonk Broker number 3 currently holds 0.26 Apple, 0.26 Amazon, and 0.26 NVIDIA, and its token-bound wallet withdrawable by the owner anytime. It's a wallet operated by the owner of the NFT. It's self-fractionalized anytime via Stonk Broker. So you have this NFT, and you can convert an NFT back into the fungible token called Stonk Broker to the tune of 666,666 tokens. Gets you one NFT, so you can convert back and forth. But the NFT itself allows you to unlock the assets within that NFT, which are stocks.
Right.
Yeah, so it's very interesting. The tools live in every broker on Robinhood Chain. So really going ham on this wolf stuff.
Yeah, that's part of the course, right? If you're the CEO of a chain, this is your responsibility, is to add to the culture value of your chain, right?
Yeah.
Brian Armstrong wants nothing to do with that for whatever reason. He's more focused on, rubbing shoulders with,
Congress.
Yeah, the fucking, what do you call those guys? The guys who used to wear the wigs back in the day. Whatever, dude, the big wigs.
Yeah, the big wigs.
He wants to rub shoulders with the likes of those people instead of his people, right?
Yeah. All right, so we're gonna put this link as well. ERC 6551 non-fungible token bound account. So it's like creating an account, but the NFT is the one who can control those assets within that account.
Yeah. So it's as if the NFT is like
A user.
of the chain, which is cool. So that mechanic you just kind of outlined sounds familiar, right? Like ERC 404.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fractionalizing NFTs.
Yeah, so it's like that functionality is like one of the many things you can, I guess, like now do.
Yeah, so
within
this
the NFT itself.
6551 came out in 2023.
Yeah, it's been around.
Yeah.
So it's like that is weird, right?
Yeah.
It's just some random ass token standard all of a sudden getting usage, but we've seen that before. Like you said, what was it? Taproot upgrade.
Yeah. It took about a year and a half before Ornals came out.
Before, yeah, Casey, just some random dev in the ecosystem was like, you know what? I have a cool, clever use case for this thing. Let me run it and see what happens. And then boom.
$1 billion runners.
And that happened.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
And a lot of other things, right? So who knows? Maybe we're repeating history here. But again, the question for today is, well, does this thing have legs? Can it become a $1 billion runner in its own right? And if it does, then yeah, expect this token protocol to get a lot more adoption down the line.
Yeah. Right. It looks like Fern, who is the head of product at Robinhood, has started following Clutch Markets.
Yeah.
It says, I actually talked about this project in the post below. The protocol created 0x Simple Farmer is building an RWA ecosystem on Robinhood Chain around Stonk Broker with a model where protocol fees are converted into tokenized stocks and distributed to active holders. So this is the guy who created it, Simple Farmer.
Yeah. So again, there's some lore behind, his prior endeavors. Like anybody building a Web3, right? You typically do a lot of things and then all of a sudden one thing just really takes off.
Yeah.
Right. So but nonetheless, that's what I mean, because he went through the diligence of going through all the testnet gauntlet of the chain. He's got the right people paying attention, basically. So that could be bullish. I think that's bullish.
Yeah.
Don't you agree?
Yeah, definitely. Tusk, Stonk Brokers' attention is growing. Come clock in, and it's trending.
Yeah. So all the nice little things you like to see, right? So, you can interpret all this information however you want, right? Maybe this is a local top, because again, it did kind of explode over the weekend, went from virtually nothing to basically a 10, 15 million market cap coin.
Yeah.
With a NFT that went from virtually valueless to $2,000 each. Like, that's pretty explosive growth, right? But I guess it's up to us to figure out, us as content creators, we have a responsibility too, right? We don't want to bring projects to you that already topped out.
Yeah, that's right.
That would suck, right?
Yeah. Hence, we're showing you at the top here
What?
the price performance of Stonk Broker.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're saying, over the weekend, it was at basically nothing, and now it reached as high as 17 million.
Right.
And then right now it's at 10 million. So it could continue correcting here, or it could just skyrocket. We don't know.
Yeah, of course we don't know, but like we have to make a judgment call on. I don't know. Is there enough here? Like, what are your thoughts? What are you seeing here? Is there enough novelty? Is there enough of can you see a trend emerging from this? What do you think?
Yeah, I think injecting stocks into this is definitely new, and ultimately when these tokens are trading, they go up and they go down. But ultimately, the whole point of this token is to acquire hard assets. And so when you acquire Apple or Nvidia, they don't go to zero overnight like some crypto tokens do. So there could be like a net positive here where people get crazy with this game, and then all of a sudden they're just holders of stocks. And
yeah, it is weird. It does feel similar to like early NFT days where we're like questioning, are people really going to get excited over like art, like owning digital art? Like, because you and I traditionally were not like appreciators of art.
Sure.
But we heard through the whispers of crypto, it was like people are really excited about owning art on chain.
Yeah.
And it didn't make sense to us at the time.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, and people were making a lot of money for the people who made that leap of a connection. Is like, you know what? In the future, people will really care about this stuff. And they were right.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like it feels similar. It's like, we know stocks are a big deal, right? But like, does owning them on chain, like, really, is that really that big of a deal that's going to drive, retail to come on board and, projects like this to hit the multi-billion-dollar market caps? We don't know.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody knows, really, because none of them have actually achieved that yet.
Yeah.
But that is like the speculative bet you got to make today.
Yeah,
right?
the opportunity potential.
Yeah.
All right, so these NFTs on OpenSea, here they are. You can see the floor price at 1.48 ETH.
What do you think of the art style, dude?
Very familiar to ordinals.
Yeah, I mean, like, pixel. Is this pixel art?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, this is definitely like pixel art. Low poly pixel art. You're not buying these things for the,
the artistic appreciation.
Yeah, this isn't a Picasso here, or maybe it is. Depends on your, your beholding, I guess. But nonetheless, they're going up in value because of their attachment to this idea of something new, right? It's aligned to, I guess, the culture emerging from Robinhood, right? So how far it goes depends on a lot of things, right? How big the community can get. Will others come in and kind of try and replicate this same model, stuff like that.
Yeah. So last tweet here, we have a NFT timeline. So January 26th all the way or into the future here, August 29th planned. But there's a couple of things that are interesting. We have the floor price of the NFTs at 0.48. We just showed you it was much higher now. 83,000 in fees, 265 NFTs activated, and 68,000 in distributed stock tokens.
Mm-hmm.
So there's value, like hard asset value, being distributed. and then finally, MEXC futures listing launch of perp futures for Stonk Broker. So all this happened over the weekend, or most of this stuff.
Yeah. And then, again, there's like some future contingencies, right? It's like, whether or not they can execute on delivering on this launchpad, July 29th. That's like next week.
Yeah.
So expect a launchpad coming, and then a month after that, a full-on DEX exchange, apparently. And why do these things? Well, because it delivers new streams of value, I assume, or new streams of buying power for Stonk's distribution, right? So all that means is if you hold one of these NFTs or the tokens themselves, and this team actually succeeds and executes in capturing like a large portion of the market share on Robinhood, the way Pump.Fun did, or the way Believe did, or BagZap did on Solana, then that's a pretty big Stonk purchasing flywheel machine, right? So you will become the main beneficiaries of that.
Yeah, because trading volume on the NFTs and the tokens go to buy additional assets. So if it does well and you're holding one of these NFTs, you're essentially accruing hard assets, so stocks.
Yeah, so what's different here? Like, this isn't new. We've seen these games being played in crypto forever, right?
Yeah.
But typically it's like these types of games, like these yield mechanisms, and you're what's accruing here is more crypto.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. Vapor coins, yams.
In other words, the volatility is like crazy.
Well, traditionally.
Yeah.
But that's not what's happening here. You're receiving stocks.
Yeah.
So it's like, is that a big deal? Like that's really.
Yeah. The question here.
Yeah. Does that matter? Like, because all of a sudden these same games are now being applied. And like the distributed reward mechanism here is not like some new vapor coin that could go, that almost certainly will go to zero at some point. These are like hard equities that typically cannot go to zero, right? They tend to go up over time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, they use stocks because of Robinhood, but they could have just purchased, Bitcoin, for example, and distributed that. And they could have purchased real estate, fractionalized real estate, and distributed that. But they chose stocks because it kind of makes sense for the underlying chain.
Yeah, I mean, that's the lowest hanging fruit as far as like a primitive as of right now. But yeah, I think like tokenized real estate probably will be available.
Yeah, part of this. Yeah.
I read like a huge report from GameStop. Like they're doing a lot of effort to try and, tokenize real world collectibles, like fractionalized ownership. Like they're actually trying to get them through like the securities rails to to offer that, and who knows, those products might find their way onto Robinhood one day.
Yep, I agree.
And then that's it.
Who doesn't want to own a piece of the Trump Tower, right, TJ?
Right.
Piece of the Trump Tower. What else could you fractionalize? Like the pyramids of Giza,
The Capitol State Building,
the Empire State Building.
the Empire State. Yeah,
Is that the same thing? No. I was thinking, what's that tower in Paris?
Eiffel Tower.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Who owns that?
I don't know.
Probably France. So it's like fractionalize that, put it on chain, and like let us
Yeah,
build distribution flywheels.
just wield it in crypto.
Interesting. So who knows? It's really hard to tell because it's super early, but just like everything, right? Early NFTs, it's like it's gazy
Yeah,
or hazy, but there's some substance there that makes you you can't look away in case it does manifest.
yeah,
right?
yeah. I agree. All right, that's it for us. For all of you who are watching, let us know if you have comments around this stuff. Stonk Broker, are you partaking in the whole Robinhood craze that's happening right now? And make sure you follow us on Twitter. Appreciate you for watching. We'll catch you in the next video.
Peace.